right, welcome everyone on this beautiful Monday evening. We appreciate you being with us. I know it's gorgeous outside and you're probably thinking about barbecuing and hanging out. But we are here today to learn about toilet training, and we are joined by Beth Golden and Jackie Klein, both of our Applied Behavior Analysis departments. My name is Emily Lebu, and I am a liaison for the Family and Community Engagement Department. And here at Family and Community Engagement, our mission is to partner with students, family, and staff to support students' specialized academic, social, and emotional needs to promote self-determination, equitable opportunities, and authentic inclusion. Okay, I will remind everyone this is a webinar and it is being recorded. During this webinar, your camera and your microphone have been disabled, so no one can see you. You may ask questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. The chat messaging between participants has been limited in order to offer contact between the panelists and the hosts. Webinars cannot guarantee a confidential environment, so please do not share identifiable or specific information about your family or your student. If you need additional assistance, please let me know. You can chat with the host or use the question and answer. Closed captioning has been activated, and a recording of this webinar will be uploaded within 1 week. So without further ado, I will let Beth and Jackie take it from here.
Hi, good afternoon. Good evening, everybody. I guess it's later in the day than I thought. So thank you to Emily for that lovely introduction. And just wanted to start off by introducing myself and allow Jackie the same opportunity. So my name is Beth Golden. I am an ABA area coordinator for the South Central region. So covering areas from Hancock down south all the way up through Ladue, along with Litzinger and New Owner as well, which are obviously SSD schools. So Jackie, go ahead.
Sure. My name is Jackie Klein. I'm also a behavior analyst on Beth's team, and I am currently over at Ladue Early Childhood.
Awesome. So we will jump right in. Obviously, Emily mentioned at the beginning, with the webinar style, it's a little bit more difficult for kind of that quick back and forth question answer, but we definitely want to hear from you. We definitely want to be able to answer any questions that you may have. However, I'm going to put the disclaimer out there that Jackie and I are going to be speaking in pretty big generalities today. So while we have obviously the science of applied behavior analysis and what that does for our students with toilet training, I also will say that we cannot necessarily give out specific or student specific or, child specific advice. So things that we're going to start with this evening. So signs of toilet readiness. So what are those things that your student, your child may be showing you to say, hey, I think I'm ready, obviously, for this toilet training journey. What to prepare when toilet training. So it's not just a quick, something that happens overnight. Obviously, we want you to be prepared. We want you to have those skills, those tools kind of added to your toolbox so that you know what you need. Communication ideas when toilet training. So what are some great communication visuals? What are some things that you can obviously promote with communication when we're talking about toilet training? Once we hit through those three things, Jackie's going to go through an overview of a toilet training procedure. So she'll kind of give you the in-depth, information regarding this specific toilet training procedure. Again, you can go out on the web all day long and find different ways and different toilet training options, but this is obviously based on our science, the science of, behavior analysis, and we're really looking at utilizing motivation, utilizing reinforcement, and really kind of trying to build success with our students. We'll hit on toilet training obstacles. So obviously everything is not easy. But that's what kind of why we're here, to help answer questions or things that you may have encountered as you've started that journey. Talking about consistency. So obviously we all know consistency is key with our students, with those in our care. And then also we want to provide you some resources. Okay. All right. So signs of toilet readiness. So again, we're talking about toilet training that can run the gamut in terms of ages, right? This is not necessarily something that we're talking about specifically for those young students. This could be for any student, any age student. So when they show signs of discomfort, when wet or soiled. So sometimes you may see your child, your student that you work with, trying to take off the pants when they're wet. They start wiggling around. They don't want to sit, those types of things. They come to get you. So as soon as they're wet or soiled, they're coming to you. They want to be in your presence so that they're showing you that they're uncomfortable like that. Understanding contingency. So a lot of times, and we'll kind of get to this, but I talked about motivation. I talked about those reinforcers, those types of things. We want our students to understand contingencies. So are they getting that first then? So first I use the potty, or first I sit on the toilet, and then I get access to iPad, or then I get a story read to me, whatever that preferred item is. So we really want to make sure before we start this toilet journey, that they are understanding those first then contingencies. Also, it's helpful if familiar with the use of a timer. So understanding and the procedure that Jackie is going to talk through, we're really working on kind of that time on the potty, time off. So making sure that, if they understand that timer, if they respond to countdowns, it can be whatever kind of timer, right? It doesn't need to be anything fancy. We have timers on all our phones or those types of devices these days. You can get really creative with timers that are more visually pleasing. So it would be great as we kind of start talking about toilet readiness if they are familiar with timer use. Strong reinforcers are easily identified. So like I mentioned earlier, motivation is key. Okay. So anytime obviously we're talking about toilet training tonight, but anytime that Jackie or I work with students, we are trying to find those items, those reinforcers that motivate the student. A lot of times our students that we work with are not intrinsically motivated, right? They need something externally motivating at times. So whether it be a fruit snack, whether it be access to their favorite video, Daniel Tiger's obviously another favorite for videos with a lot of our kids. So just making sure that there are strong reinforcers easily identified. Us as behavior analysts, we have great tools that we can use for this. So whether it be reinforcer assessment, where we can interview families or parents. So always trying to look for what is actually motivating. What is that student going to respond to and actually see as a reinforcer? We have definitely found over the years that there are some very odd reinforcers that maybe you or I don't like, but our students definitely, we have to explore so many options with them. So don't be afraid to explore a lot of options. Don't be afraid to explore those things that really make that student motivated. The willingness to sit on a toilet. So this is big. Sometimes our students, when we really first start working with them, are scared to sit down on the potty, scared to sit down, whether it be, all these things that have changed over the years, some potties and toilets, whatever. I'm speaking like I'm working with the younger population, but any of the, if you think about toilets out in public, sometimes those have the automatic flushers. And so that has kind of created this fear response in a lot of our kids. So making sure that they're willing to sit on the toilet, that they don't find that fear, that they're not scared of it. So we want to kind of create that environment within the bathroom where the toilet is, obviously, that is very enriched and happy and calming and safe for that person. All right, so what to prep? Obviously I hit on reinforcers big, right? So highly preferred snacks, treats, toys, iPad, anything that is gonna, help that student keep that motivation to keep trying, because reinforcement that providing something to that student, we want to see this behavior continue to increase, right, and continue to grow. So what do we have? What things, fruit snacks, chips, toys that light up, toys that sing, iPad. Those are all, iPads are fantastic, or any kind of electronic device that, they can kind of sit down with, is great. I mentioned timers. So timers with a visual or picture countdown, those are extremely helpful. You can get timers, obviously, I think they still sell them at the dollar store. They used to sell fantastic timers at the dollar store, that were obviously cheap and easy to use and easy for the student to see that countdown. Underwear. This was always something big, letting your child pick them out. So going to the store, you may go through a variety of underwear. Maybe superheroes are their thing this time. But always remember that a lot of our students may struggle with some of those sensory issues. So making sure that when you're picking out underwear, whether it's a favorite theme or whatnot, that your child is also feeling it. Okay. So that texture, sometimes different textures, or if there's a tag in them, that could be problematic for your student. Liquids. I know seems silly, but we need our students to drink, right? And drink a lot and consume a lot of liquid, because we're working on, and Jackie will get to it in the procedure, where we're trying to work up with our student, their time sitting on the potty and being able to obviously utilize the restroom. So preferred liquids. I know water is not preferred by a lot, but if there's any favorite juice boxes, things like that, making sure some of our students are drinking out of sippy cups still at this point. Others prefer to drink out of something with a straw. So just making sure that you have preferred liquids for your kiddo, as you get ready to kind of start this journey. Always having extra stocked up. Okay. And then fun items for the bathroom. So I mentioned making that bathroom an enriching environment. So, you don't want our student, you don't want your child to be scared. So what can we have in that bathroom to kind of make it fun? Whether it be toys, books, sticker chart, any of that kind of stuff. So just making sure some of our students enjoy music in the restroom. So we're doing whatever we can to make that environment enriching, make it somewhere that our kids want to be. Okay. All right. I hit on communication. So I know a lot of our students that we work with obviously respond very well to visuals. And here's an example, obviously on your screen now, of a picture schedule, right? So this is walking through the steps of how to use the restroom. So taking underwear down, sitting, underwear up, flushing, toilet, and washing hands. This is a pretty basic visual. There may be times that we need to break it down even further. Okay. And so those are all things that, that your school team for your student, if your student receives any kind of services from the ABA division or an autism EPS or anybody like that, any of us are happy to kind of help with some of these picture schedules or help you with visuals that are going to help kind of facilitate that communication. So PECs, some of our students are utilizing PECs, so that picture exchange system, or any just communication visual in terms of if they need a break, if, a yes, no, those types of things. Some of our students also use devices, so that augmentative communication device. So just making sure that on that device, there is some type of communication icon for the bathroom, for the restroom. So, and that we're teaching that communication. So we're modeling, it's time for bathroom, or go bathroom, whatever that might be on the student's device. Obviously, I already jumped in on that. So practicing and modeling potty, or other words that you are using for bathroom. So you've heard me say a lot so far, oh, potty, or toilet or bathroom or restroom. It can be whatever word that you use most often in your family. Those are things that obviously we want them hearing that language, hearing those models that are appropriate and that are being used around them all the time. Wet versus dry. So really teaching that concept of, my underwear are wet, or I need to keep Mario dry. So really trying to play up with your student, what you can do to kind of help support, if they love superheroes or Mario, they have that new big movie out now about Mario. So maybe kids will be liking Mario underwear these days, who knows? But just really trying to utilize some of that language and gives that kiddo some buy-in, right? So, okay, we want to keep Mario dry so that he can go save Princess Peach or something to that effect. So really, really focusing on that communication piece. There's a variety of things, but we want to make sure big things is that we're modeling that language. We're modeling what obviously we want to see from our students. All right. I think I will let Jackie jump in unless there were any other questions or anything based off those first few things. I'm not seeing anything, Jack, so I think you are good to go.
Great. Thanks, Beth. All right. So Beth kind of went over everything about you'll now be able to identify whether your student or your child is showing signs of readiness to toilet train. You've got all your materials prepped, all of those beginner things. So now what do you do with all that information, right? So the very first thing that we want to do, I'm going to put a lot of emphasis on this creating a schedule, because you're going to hear me say over and over again that consistency and predictability with toilet training is key. So the whole idea behind this procedure is that we are creating as many opportunities as possible for your child to have a successful elimination on the toilet, whether it's urination or a bowel movement. And as many opportunities as we can, and then as many opportunities for those successes to meet the reinforcement. Okay, so this really exciting thing that they're working for. And as the more that we can have that happen, the more likely that they are going to continue to use the toilet in the future. Okay, so with this schedule, there's 3 different parts. So we have our on the toilet time, our off the toilet time, and our reinforcement time. Okay, and for this presentation, I just picked some times to kind of go over to use as an example, but identifying these times is really going to depend on several factors that's individualized to your child or your student. So, and this could be tolerance for being in the bathroom or sitting on the toilet. If they have a shorter attention span or lower tolerance, you might not be able to start with this higher number, this 7 that I have here. Again, overall comfort with the bathroom, which Beth talked about, and also just level of understanding. So it's different if your student is able to understand the concept and the end goal and be able to communicate that with you, because they're going to have more buy-in with that. Where if your child doesn't quite understand when you get started, but will be learning it throughout this, then we might have to start with the lower number 2. So it really just depends on where they're at, if they've had previous successes, if they know what it's like to eliminate in the toilet, or if this is their very first time. So for the sake of using this example, we're going to start with 7 minutes as our on time, 5 minutes as our off time, and then our reinforcement is 10 minutes. So that on time is just how it sounds. It's the amount of time that your child is sitting on the toilet. Okay. The off time is the breaks in between those times sitting on the toilet. So they'll be on the toilet for 7 minutes, taking a break off the toilet for 5 minutes. And again, this is just a starting point. It's important that off time they are staying either in the bathroom or very close to the bathroom, because again, we want to be able to get to the toilet as quickly as possible so we can have these opportunities and really increase the likelihood that we're going to catch them eliminating on the toilet, so then we can reinforce that. So some things to keep in mind with that off the toilet time is making sure, again, like what Beth said, you've got some activities and lots of positive pairing going on with the bathroom. So puzzles, fidgets are great to have on hand, books to read, songs to sing with your child, things like that. And then the third part is the reinforcement time. So this happens immediately following a success in the toilet. And we want to make this time a really, really big deal with lots of social praise. And then this is also the time that you are giving your child the biggest motivator you can think of. So I've seen people in the past use iPad time as like the number one thing their kid loves. I've seen parents or caregivers use cake pops or a new toy that maybe you have bought just for this and you're kind of saving it. They know it's there, and then they get access to a new toy or a small toy and a set of new toys that are really exciting. So you have those on hand. And we will kind of get into some more details with each of these as we move through. Okay, so we start at the beginning of your child's day. As soon as they get up, kind of explain to them, hey, we're going to start working on going potty in the toilet or using the toilet. Again, that language that Beth kind of talked about. And explain to them in words, wherever your child is, that they can understand what you'll be doing, because we do want to offer as much predictability as possible. So it starts with your on the toilet time. So you have that timer ready that they can see, get them changed into whatever clothes they're going to wear, and then set them on the toilet and start that timer for, again, in this example, it's 7 minutes. Have that timer visible to your child so they can see exactly how long they're being asked to sit and when they can get up, so they don't think that they're on there indefinitely. And then this is when you have those mild to moderate preferred items in the bathroom that you're engaging with them to keep it positive. So again, some fidgets on hand are great. Little lap puzzles, reading them their favorite stories, singing songs with them, lots of positive engagement, but save that big, exciting motivator for that reinforcement time for when they have a success on the toilet. Excuse me. Okay, so during the 7 minutes on the toilet, one of two things are going to happen. They'll either eliminate on the toilet or they won't. If they do not eliminate on the toilet during the 7 minute time, the timer goes off. You say, oh, nice try. We're going to get off, and we'll try again in a little bit. So you have them get off. You can use that visual strip that Beth showed you on, I think, the last slide, to use these opportunities to help increase independence with pulling up their pants, washing hands, things like that. Which I say washing hands, but we have some hand sanitizer on hand too, because washing hands, especially at the beginning when you're getting off and on, many times, washing the child's hands every time will definitely make their hands a little bit raw. So that doesn't need to be an expectation every single time, but can really help with working on that independence of pulling up and down the pants, and then also modeling communication when you're putting them on and off the toilet. Okay, so then pants are pulled up, ready to go. Set that timer for their off time, which would be 5 minutes. And again, we want to keep them in the bathroom if possible, or very close, like the room right outside the bathroom or the hallway. And again, engaging in some of those preferred activities for this amount of time. And reminding them, if you need to go to the bathroom, you can go to the toilet, or if you need to go to the bathroom, you can hand me this toilet picture, or you can say potty. So they're hearing that communication modeled all the time. Okay, so then your 5 minute timer goes off and you start back to the top, put them on the toilet for 7 minutes, and you keep this cycle going. Okay. The other option was if during that time they were on the toilet, the student does eliminate in the toilet, whether it's a urination or a bowel movement. If this does happen, you end that timer right away. Give lots of social praise, lots of reinforcement. It's a big deal. If you're using a sticker chart, this is the time that you're giving them a sticker, and you take them off the toilet immediately after that success. So then this is also where whatever big reinforcer you were saving, this is when you provide it, because we want to pair the biggest, most motivating thing with the success so it continues to happen. Okay. In addition to that big reinforcer, we're also letting the child have a little bit more freedom. Okay. So that break time off the toilet, that reinforcement time, is a bit bigger than your off the toilet time for a couple of reasons. One, they just eliminated, so their bowels should be pretty empty. So we should have a little bit more time, but we're also working on expanding the time in between accidents or going to the bathroom, so that they are able to increase the time that they're able to hold their urine. We're also giving them a little bit more freedom, so they can go out of the bathroom. They can access different parts of the house, and trying to incorporate some of those other distractions as we try to build their body's ability to communicate with themselves, that they're able to identify when they have to go to the bathroom. If at any point during an off the toilet time or a reinforcement time, the child has an accident, if you're close enough to the bathroom and you catch it early on and you can take them and place them on the toilet and they finish in the toilet, treat that as a success, reinforce, and give that time again, because again, that's just one more opportunity that they are eliminating in the toilet that we can reinforce and get really excited about to increase likelihood that it's going to happen in the future. If they have an accident and they finish off of the toilet somewhere, maybe on the floor, then at that point, we're not reprimanding or creating an aversive situation, because they are still learning. We're going to use this as a learning opportunity. So instead, that off the toilet time ends, it is important to have them help clean up as much as possible, both from an ability standpoint, but also a sanitary standpoint. But the reason why we want them to help is we don't want to make it easy for them, because we want them to see that having the accident and going through all this cleanup procedure is much harder and a lot more time consuming than just going on the toilet. Okay, so then after an accident, we place them back on the toilet, we start that on the toilet time over, and the procedure starts over again. Something to keep in mind, and I know Beth talked about this too, is making sure that throughout this whole process, in order to create more opportunities to go, they have to go to the bathroom. So again, those liquids that you have stacked up, we want to push them pretty regularly throughout. And it's the time that, while ideally you don't want them to drink apple juice all day, you might be a little bit more lenient with some of those liquids, just so we're getting them in their system, so they're having more opportunities to learn. Something else too that's helpful is having snacks on hand with higher liquid content. So like fruits and vegetables, watermelon's a great one, cucumbers, things like that have more liquid, because that can also increase their need to go. Beth, would you mind going to the next slide for me? Okay, so a big part of this, and I know this is also the ABA and us as well, but it is very helpful, is to have a way that you are tracking this information and taking the data of what you're doing, because when you do that, you're able to identify some patterns, but also identify when, like, hey, this is starting to work. We're seeing some more success. Maybe we can push them a little bit further. Okay, so some things that you want to track when you're doing this, and it doesn't have to look exactly like this. This is just the information you want to keep in mind to keep track of. You want to note which day it is, because when you get further along in this, I'm going to pause right there for a second, because I don't think we touched on this. When you do more of an intensive toilet training procedure like this is something that you really want to be able to dedicate a good amount of time to, and it be your sole focus for that time period. So sometimes families can do this in a day or a weekend or extended weekend. Over spring break is one that I know families like to target a lot, because they can just have those days, have this focus without other distractions, or school, different environments, things like that. They just have them home and can focus on that. Okay, so back to what I was saying, one of the things that you want to track is the day that you're on. So when you're looking at the data that you take and it's day 3, it's going to look a lot different than day 1, which is very exciting to look at too, just to see how far you've come and the progress your child has made. Down here, you want to identify where you're starting as far as on the toilet time, off the toilet time, and reinforcement time. And ideally, as they become more successful, which I'll explain in a minute, these times that you choose are all going to continue to move to the right, progress to the right, as they become more successful. And then down here is your tracking of what time they're being put on the potty or the toilet. So, first thing in the morning, maybe it's 7:30, and then you want to document why you're putting them on there, because it's that normal schedule that you're following. Your timer went off. Are you putting them on the toilet because they just had an accident? Or are you putting them on because they're picking up on that language that you're repeating, and they requested to sit on the toilet, which is very exciting when that starts to happen. And then again, what time is it when you take them off? Is it due to, again, a timer going off, so it's part of your schedule? Are you taking them off the toilet because they just had successful urination or bowel movement in the toilet? And then anything that pops up, you can write over here in the notes. And as you go down, what you're going to see on this left side is it's going to be clear when accidents are happening and how often they're happening. And then over here on your right, you're going to see the successes. And as those accidents decrease and those successes increase, then you can start changing your time over here. So instead of 7 minutes on the toilet, okay, we look like we're doing pretty good, we're making progress. Let's move to 6 minutes on the toilet. We'll decrease to 6 minutes on. We'll increase to 6 minutes off. And then we'll up the reinforcement time to 15 minutes. So we're slowly building their tolerance, building their ability to hold their urine, to then identify when they need to go. And then as that on toilet time decreases as well, training their body, okay, I'm sitting on the toilet, this is my time to go. So Beth, if you go to the next one, you can kind of see an example one filled out. So for this student, we're on day 2. He's sitting on the toilet for 3 minutes, off the toilet for 7. So already kind of decreasing this time on the toilet here and increasing the time off. And our reinforcement time is up to 20 minutes. So if you look over here, it looks like he started about 7:30. We were on and off, nothing's happening. We're pushing liquids. So, kind of have to give ourselves some time to build up that liquid intake. And then about 8:05, he had an accident. But over here in the notes, if you look, it says, a very small accident. And then immediately following there, he had a bigger urination on the potty, which is really exciting, because you might see that accident and think, oh man, that's not what we want. But the fact that it was really small, and then he was able to hold it, and that next one have a bigger one, I mean, that's in my mind a pretty big success. And then during that reinforcement time, that 20 minutes, he was able to stay dry the whole entire time. Okay, so then we're back on our schedule, and a little bit later had another accident. Again, if you read over here, it's a small accident, but the parent was able to take him to the toilet, and he finished urinating on the toilet. So they were able to celebrate that as a success. He had another 20-minute reinforcement time and was able to stay dry that whole time. So if I'm looking at this, I would think, okay, it looks like he's making some great progress. The accidents have been pretty small. He's had a couple successes. Let's give this a little bit, maybe see what happens here soon when he has to go again. As our accidents decrease a little bit more, maybe if we have one more success without an accident, then we can start moving everything to the right again. We can do on toilet time for 2, increases off toilet time to 8 or 9. And then we're going to push this reinforcement time up to 30. So you're going to continuously track this and keep working on it as you move through your days. When you get up to these times and the child's been repeatedly successful with an hour to 2 hours off the toilet, I think that is a really good time where you can start kind of having a more a less intrusive, a less rigid schedule. And so then you're just making sure, okay, every 2 hours we're going to take the child to the bathroom to try. Okay. And it feels a little bit more natural. And if they continue to have success with that and minimal accidents, that's when you bring in, school, daycare, grandma's house. Okay, hey, we're trying this. We're keeping him in his underwear, but please make sure that you're encouraging him to at least go sit and try every 2 hours or wherever it is that you leave off. All right, Beth. I think I am ready for the next one. Obstacles. Okay, so we got through the basics of kind of the procedure. And again, those times are going to look different depending on your child, on your student, and where they are with the number of factors and skills and things like that. But we're going to go over a couple things that come up pretty often as far as obstacles go and some things that you can do to help with those. So mealtime. So I get this question a lot, like, well, what do we do for lunchtime? What do we do for dinner time if we're in the bathroom most of the day? And there's not necessarily one right answer for this. I mean, I prefer that, we can schedule mealtime during a bigger reinforcement time. So again, it's more natural. They can have dinner at the table with the family or whatever your home routine is for dinner. They can still participate in that and just, keep the timer going in the background, maybe have some towels around or things like that, just to kind of be prepared. But the more you can kind of work that in naturally would be perfect. But if you have a child that would be super excited about a picnic in the bathroom, I mean, that's up to you. You can make that work as well if that's something that's going to motivate them. Playing in the water. So sometimes we have kids that like to explore the water in the toilet bowl. Again, consistency. I say this all the time, but just whatever words that you are, one, try to watch. If you know that this is kind of a habit, make sure that you're right there ready to block. So you're being as proactive as possible. And then use some kind of consistent language. Hands stay out of the toilet, hands stay dry, hands stay out. Pick kind of one thing to stay and stick with that one. Redirect them away. If they're off the toilet, make sure the lid's down just to try to avoid that altogether. If they're on the toilet and trying, something really good to have is using those preferred items in the bathroom, like a fidget, something to keep their hands busy so they're not trying to reach down and play in the water. Overly interested in flushing. So some kids like to turn around and flush. Again, having something to keep their hands busy helps with this, just like playing in the water. If there are attempts to flush the toilet, you can block from doing so. Use your first then statement. So first potty and then we can flush. That's kind of using that reinforcement if they do want to flush that, we go potty first. And then also just having that consistent and clear expectation of we flush one time and then we're all done. I think we've got 2 more on the next one. Resisting sitting on the toilet. So if your child finds sitting on the toilet super aversive and is really fighting it and it's creating this negative aversive situation in the bathroom, this is where I would really encourage you to reach out. If you do have a behavior analyst on your team or student support facilitator or somebody that can kind of help, just be someone to take a second look at it, because it could be a number of things and we don't want to push too hard and end up taking a couple steps back with this by creating a more negative situation. Because it could be, again, what Beth was saying about the noise level of the toilet or the fear of the automatic flusher. I've also seen a lot of kids who have a fear about something literally falling out of their body into the toilet. That just takes some time for them to realize that it's okay. So it might be if this is the bigger issue with your child taking a couple steps back, and before even getting into this whole procedure, it might be that we're just being okay we're just being okay being in the bathroom next to the toilet, or sitting on the toilet with the lid down with their pants on. That might be where we're starting, is that, you read your favorite book while sitting, like I said, on top of the toilet with the lid down, pants on, and then we slowly do one little increment at a time to get them used to being on the toilet. So I would really encourage you to reach out and get some assistance with that. If it isn't as severe, using that timer can be really, really helpful, keeping that start time pretty short until they can start, until they start getting some of that positive pairing and seeing on that timer, oh, I'm not actually really on here that long. And I know exactly when I'll be able to get off. And it becomes less aversive for them. And then the last one, again, is something that tends to happen, is placing hands in pants and underwear, just kind of exploring a little bit, having something that they can manipulate with their hands or engage with, helps with that as well. And what helps with that as well, and then using that consistent language, whatever it may be, hands stay out or pants stay up, things like that. And you'll kind of run into this more during like the off the toilet times, as they're exploring the feeling of underwear instead of a diaper or a pull-up. It just feels different. So just, teaching when it's appropriate to pull, use your hands to pull down your underwear and go to the bathroom and things like that. And then when it's not as appropriate, we need to keep our hands out. Okay, we are almost wrapping up here. So with this whole procedure, we touched on a lot of things that you can, some things that you can pull from, some things that you might leave behind. Again, schedule might look different. Hopefully you can find something that you can use and will be beneficial. The biggest thing is whatever you choose to do, whatever you start at home, and you go through, is to remain consistent with that. So across all people, settings, communication, everything. So making sure that the schedule you have in place, you're following that as consistently as possible. So then your child also knows what to expect and is able to predict the same thing as well. That it's consistent across people. So communicate with grandma and grandpa, siblings, babysitters, teachers, daycare staff, that if you're on a 2-hour schedule and they get a M&M every time they have a successful elimination in the toilet, that they are also doing the same thing to increase those opportunities and increase those amount of times that can meet reinforcement. Also across, that kind of goes with people, across settings, home, school, daycare, camp, especially when you get it started. I mean, schools love to join in on this and reinforce this as well. Communication, those words and those key phrases that we talked about, like keeping Mario dry, is Mario dry? Whether you're using a toilet picture or a communication device or specific words, also communicating that with other people in other settings, so we can use the same words as well. And then touched on this as well, but whatever reinforcement procedure that you're continuing with, whether it's an M&M or access to a toy for a little bit or a short video, you can do this across settings as well. All right, Beth, I think. So some resources we have in there for you. We've touched on them a couple times. If you're working with the behavior analyst, if your student receives ABA, your student support facilitator, or autism EPS. And then I also included a couple just little Daniel Tiger potty songs that can be quite catchy. A lot of his songs are very catchy when it comes to different things that you're working with your child with. But those are great ones just for exposure, to kind of start showing videos or books, start talking about toilet training before you dive into this. So your child kind of starts hearing it and can apply some things as well.
And Jax, there was a question, and I will say at this point, feel free, if anybody has any questions, to go ahead and pop those into the question answer the chat. So Jackie, this question is that intense schedule something you follow the entire day? So the child would be on the toilet every 15 minutes. And you do this for as many days as it takes the child to catch on. So that was the question.
Yes. So you would figure out your child's starting point, and then you would stick with that throughout the day until you start to see them catch on with those accidents decreasing and those successes increasing. And then that's when you want to decrease the time on the toilet, so they're not on the toilet as long, and increase the time off, so their breaks are bigger. So you're building that tolerance, you're building that ability to hold their urine. So that can change throughout the day. You just want to make sure that you're taking that data to monitor whether you're moving too fast or you're ready to go. Because if you start to increase that time, you move that time to the right, but you're seeing a lot more accidents, maybe we move too soon and take a step back and increase that time on the toilet and then decrease that time off. Does that answer your question? And then you continue that schedule with those modifications until they're at a point where maybe they can sit on the toilet for 2 minutes, but they're off for 60 minutes without an accident, or an hour and a half.
It's hard to say whether we answered that, because obviously we're not getting any feedback initially, but
Oh, it might be.
okay. Anyway, another question. Couple more questions are popping up. Do you have any recommendations as far as building tolerance to underwear?
That is a great question. So I've seen a couple things happening, and I guess it depends on, when you say building tolerance, like what the initial issue is. Sometimes I've seen parents still keep them, like if they're very attached to their pull-ups, start by keeping the pull-ups on but putting their underwear over it, so they still have the security of the pull-ups for a little bit, but they're starting to get used to small spurts of feeling that underwear over the pull-ups. I've also seen people do this like when they're trying to potty train, but there's certain times where it's hard to keep them, like on a bus or something, like where you really need to keep them dry, to have that pull up and then put the underwear on, and as soon as they go to school, take the pull up off. But that's one time I've seen is just starting the underwear in small increments so they get used to it, putting it over the pull up before you get started, and then also trying out different types of underwear. Some have kind of that tighter band up top, and then some are longer, more like shorts. Trying to think. Anything else, Beth?
No, I was going to say the same thing in terms of you may have to try out a variety. I also know sometimes just touching skin, right? With the underwear fabric. So there's, you're having them touch the underwear, I mean clean underwear at this point, to your hand, so they're getting used to that texture, seeing if they'll start to rub the texture, just so that they're starting to feel that, rubbing it on the leg, right? So that they're not initially putting it on, but having that feeling on their leg or near their leg. But other than that, just trying out the different varieties of underwear, different textures, because I do know, having 3 children of my own, I understand that you are, a lot of times it's kind of trying to find those things that you're, that specific child prefers. So, but I think those are some good suggestions. Other question, if a child is showing partial readiness, should you move forward or wait until all signs of readiness are there? My concern is due to communication delays. I might not know how my child feels about being wet.
Yeah, I think this is a really good question, and multiple parts to it. It's not like a set checklist that they have to show all the signs. those readiness signs are all helpful in moving forward. But if they have some but not all, you can always try, especially with that communication piece. It's going to really look different for every child. But my advice would be, move forward, try. If you're getting a lot of pushback and it seems very aversive and very negative, I would take a step back, just so you don't want to create something negative and then have to go backwards and do more work later down the line for that. But if you start to see them catch on to certain things, even if it's just increasing independence, or you got one success on there so they can see it's not scary, I think as long as you're seeing progress with it, continue. But if you're seeing regression or just kind of plateau, then I would probably put the brakes on a little bit.
I would definitely agree with that, Jackie. We want this to be fun, right? We've talked a lot about trying to create that enriching and that environment where the child feels comfortable. So anytime that we're getting to that place where something is upsetting them or it's becoming aversive, I would definitely take a step back and kind of reevaluate, see where we're at. And I think that's the beauty of this, and the beauty of kind of hit on that other question that was asked about every 15 minutes. Like, it is going to ebb and flow, right? We're going to move, so, maybe your child is moving along quickly, and then we do take a couple steps back. But that's the beauty of it, where you can kind of see where your kiddo is at, right? Look at that data and say, hey, I need to, we need to spend a little bit more time off or more time on, and adjust as you go.
And that second part of your question as well, Trisha, the concern about the communication delays, not knowing how your child feels about being wet. Look for other just kind of body language sign too, like if they're refusing to sit down or kind of walking funny, or even just trying to get it off. Those are big indicators that they're uncomfortable. Pretty much if any of their like body language changes, they're at least noticing that something's different and might be uncomfortable.
Jackie, the other, and this is not a question, but I feel like maybe hitting on it, having a bowel movement versus urination, right? I know that there is definitely can be some difficulties in potty training between the two. So can you explain a little bit or offer any insight into that?
I can. That's always the trickiest question with bowel movements, because what we talked a lot about is the more opportunities that you have to practice this and the child has to be successful, the more times you can reinforce, which means the more times that you're going to increase that likelihood it's going to happen again. Unfortunately, with bowel movements, you've got one shot in a day, and that's for some kids. I mean, a lot of the kids, that we work with, or a lot of your children may not even go on daily or once a day. So it gets really tricky when it comes to bowel movement. So I always tell families to really focus on that urination piece first. And once they start understanding the concept of going in the bathroom, the hope is that the bowel movement will then follow. But it is hard. And that is a question that comes up pretty often because you don't have a lot of opportunities to practice. But if you can, when you're doing this data, look and see if there's a pattern. Do they typically go in the evenings? Do they typically go a certain amount of time after they eat? Do they start to show signs like isolating themselves in a corner, or maybe starting to turn red because they're starting to push? Watch out for those patterns and then help your child to the bathroom and set them on the toilet in order to encourage that one success. But it may take, don't get discouraged because it may take longer just with the nature of how often it happens.
Oh, well, there was our question slide. I think that was it from the Q&A. Jackie and I have our contact information on there. So if anybody does have any questions after this, definitely feel free to reach out. Jackie is one of those people that I call the potty training guru. So, I'm going to give her a shout out. So I'm happy to answer questions. Jackie would be happy to answer questions. And we thank you for being here with us tonight.
Ladies, thank you so much. I always learn something when I hear you guys speak. I really appreciate that. We are so lucky at Special School District, and I've said this before, I'm not sure that everyone understands that not all districts bring these kind of opportunities to their families. And so I just feel so lucky that we're able to bring these opportunities for our families to learn and help their children be as successful as possible. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it. Your knowledge is phenomenal. Putting some of that data behind the idea of toilet training is huge. If you're having a hard time, for some kids, this comes naturally. For the other kids, we need to put those extra things in, like the data and the timers and things like that. So thank you so much for that knowledge. I really appreciate it. And here's our information. You can find us on the webs at ssdmo.org/face. You can email us at face@ssdmo.org or call us at 314-989-8460. We do thank you so much for joining us this evening. When this webinar is over, we will have a 6-question survey that's going to be pushed out to everyone. We really do value your feedback. It helps us plan for our future webinars and events. So we would love to hear from you that way. So thank you, ladies, so much. I really do appreciate your time and look forward to collaborating with you again in the future.
Thank you.
Bye guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Emily.